Welcome to the Ethics Experts, where we're elevating ethics and compliance and HR to the strategic level it's supposed to be.
This is the Ethics Experts. Welcome if it's your first time joining us. And if you are a returning subscriber, hello, friend. Hope you're having an amazing day. You see what happens when you subscribe to the Ethics Experts. You get an amazing bonus greeting on every single episode. So it's a no-brainer to hit that subscribe button and join the Ethics Experts community. I am here with the man, Martin Lønstrup. He is a passionate ethics and compliance professional. He's an innovator. He's a guy who's not scared to disrupt the status quo and find a better way to do things. And I've been real excited to get together and chop it up with you. How's it going today, buddy?
It's going quite well, actually. Now I'm here, so it's going even better.
Yeah, so let's just dive in. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're so passionate about the ethics and compliance game.
No, but I think I think for me it's just it's exciting, right? That you are playing that role that literally are covering all the gray areas and all the dilemmas and all the things that are very, very difficult to manage as a human being, literally, right? We like to put things in boxes, we like to measure things, we like numbers, but to be in this literally in between area here, I think that's pretty cool, actually. I think it's of course also very hard to be in that area, but it's also both interesting and inspiring, I would say.
So when did the light bulb turn on for you to where, again, let me back up. A lot of folks spend a lot of their career swimming through streams that they're not really built for and that don't really resonate deeply with them or with their purpose or something. But then I meet people on here all the time that it's very clear that they're swimming in the right pool, that they're doing, the work that they're doing is the work that they're supposed to be doing. I think you would say that I'm right about that. And I'm asking, when did that light bulb turn on for you where you said, this is it, this is where I need to spend my time, and what is it about this game that really resonates deeply with you?
No, but I think I like the challenges around dealing literally with human beings, behaviors, and the way people think when you come into a very complex business environment. And you can say I have throughout my career, I come through the lawyer, you can say, sector. I've never been in a law firm, but I've worked in-house positions all my life, and I've gone from the classic way, from legal counsel, senior legal counsel, to head of legal. Worked around the world. I've lived and worked in the U.S., in Shanghai, Singapore, India, and then actually, after having done that part, I kind of found the compliance piece very interesting, and I moved into the compliance area. And then actually, I think I took a lot of these different tools from all the other positions I've had with me into that space.
Yeah, I mean, imagine those.
At home here, I could say.
Would you say you're at home in this role now?
Yeah, I think that's it's like you probably, as you said before, right? If you kind of feel that head of legal or legal counsel reviewing contracts, that's one life. Sitting in a procurement function as a lawyer, that's a different life. But it's right now it feels at home, at least. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. You went and you lived in all these different places. You lived in all these different countries, and now you're in a multinational organization that has, I don't know, probably 50,000 people across all these different countries. How are you pulling from these different experiences to help guide and implement policies and speak up culture and things like that actually work in your current company?
Well, I think that I pull a lot from the past experience that I have, because you can say I've been sitting next to the guy who negotiates the contracts. I've been sitting next to the procurement guy who wants to just save money. I've been sitting next to the guy who literally, steer the vessel, container vessel with maybe 12,000 containers on it. So I've been through I've worked in the oil industry with negotiating contracts with the government officials in Nigeria and Angola. So I kind of been very close to business all over the place.
Yeah,
I've had small teams in India, built up compliance teams in India and in Mumbai. So so I literally what I pull into my role today is that it's of course it's about risk, but I think the compliance officer's role is not only to screen risk, because then it would never work, right? Then
right.
then you need to take the best solution every single time, but then your business will stop.
Right.
And I think my experience is that I've been through the whole chain of different functions and also the global setup that I feel maybe a little bit more relaxed. I'm a little bit more relaxed in the sense of assessing risk fairly quickly and then finding a more pragmatic solution for the business. I'm a very business focused person still, even though I'm a compliance officer.
Yeah. Do you think that your experience outside of compliance, the sort of general business experience, if you're doing contracts in general, or you're doing procurement, that's right at the cutting edge of where the supply and demand lines meet. Like you're at that intersection point, especially in that procurement place or in that procurement role. Like, do you feel like that has allowed you to be a more effective compliance officer? And how would you compare that to other folks who seem to come up just through kind of, legal directly into compliance, who lack that business, what I call a business DNA?
Yeah, but I think you're right. I'm pulling on all of that. But I think maybe one thing that I did when I joined my, this Maersk, which is this global logistics company. It's a Danish company. When I joined, we were 90,000 employees globally.
Wow.
And I joined that. It's a very very proud Danish company, a conglomerate, you can say.
Mm-hmm.
And when I joined that company in that role, I decided when I had my first week there, and I took then later 6 months later, I took over the head of legal position because the head of legal was left and they needed an interim solution. They asked, "Can you step in here?" So I said, "Yes, I can do that." And then I immediately said, "But listen, I want to do things differently." So they had this perception of legal, saying, you have heard this before. They come to legal, they say no. They come to legal, it takes a long time. They come to legal, they don't understand our reality. Literally, that was the perception I got when I started that position. And then I said, no, you're not getting me on this one. So I decided, I went out and said, I will sit one day with every single function in the company. I sat one day in the reception. I sat one day in finance. I sat one day in IT. I sat one day in procurement, in the sourcing team, in the category management team, to learn how their world functions. Mm-hmm. And then I took that back. And then I designed a legal process that would actually make it more smooth and agile and dynamic for the customers, our internal customers, you can say.
Right.
But still managing the risks. And that's kind of what I'm typically applying in anything that I do, is that if I don't understand my internal customers' point of view, then it's very difficult to get them, onto the journey and to understand, this is needed. And honestly, if you understand their world, you get a ton of flexibility. If you then need to be, if you need to be strict one day, they understand why you're strict, because the other day you were very flexible, right?
Yeah, you have credibility with them. It's not like you're just swinging a hammer at everything, treating everything like a nail. Have you ever been to one of those restaurants or heard about these restaurants where the chef cares more about the food than the people dining in the restaurant? Yeah. Like they don't want, you order a steak, and if, you can't order steak sauce with it or something, because you know what I'm saying? My steak doesn't have steak sauce on it, right? Yeah. Like there's a lot of people in the legal game that are like those chefs, where it's like your patrons, your customers are the people that you're serving. You're not serving the law. You're not serving, you know what I'm saying? You're not serving the law. You're serving people, and you're playing a role in the business that is to help that business keep the car on the road or color within the lines or whatever analogy you want to lose. I just find it so interesting that this is this continues to be such an issue in legal departments, in compliance departments across the world. Like it's not unique to a particular country or to a particular personality type or whatever. It is just, it's pervasive.
Yes, Mario, I absolutely agree. And I think that actually now you need to take it even a step further now, because one thing is that you understand your functions that you're dealing with, but now actually what you are, at least that I see that we should be judged upon was to, how do we support the whole chain ending out in the, at the customer or the, whoever is in the front line of your business. If we have made that journey out there for whoever is involved difficult, then we haven't done our job right. If we have done that smooth and integrated, so they literally hardly know that they are thinking compliance, but they are.
Yeah.
Then we've done our job, literally. So you can take it even further than that and say, it's not enough that we just know what finance is doing. We need to know the whole chain of value in the company.
Yeah, and when you want someone to do something, when you're explaining that what, and you never give them the why behind the what, it's hard for them to just follow some arbitrary rule. But if, so
it's like back to, so you can say it's literally back to what we are doing right now is that, and the way I try to communicate now is that, and maybe this is a little bit of a bold statement, right? But anyway, sometimes that also works. But just for a second, forget about the policy. Because the policy, you will always have the policy. That's your backbone piece of, that's your policy. But from the policy and out to where you deal with your customers or third parties or whoever it is, if you in that chain there don't understand what the policy is about, on a practical level,
right,
then it will never work. So why we are quite often very focused on looking at, I have the policy. This is the policy.
Right.
But have we ever thought about, the person out in the field who maybe be, let's say it's a salesperson measured on completely different things. He doesn't speak compliance language. He doesn't speak legal language. He's far away from that policy. So how do we help him actually be capable of managing his role in a way where he feels that he's not doing compliance, but he is doing compliance in just the way he acts, the way he takes decisions, the way he moves around in his role.
Yes.
That's how he does compliance.
And the shortcut to that, in my opinion, and the thing that I try to tell our clients and other compliance officers I speak to is step back from, think about it this way. You need to think about yourself as a marketer because you're selling an idea, and the idea is really you're selling a behavior. You want these people to behave in line with what's going to reduce risk, legal risk, compliance risk, whatever within the organization. So the best way to do that is by understanding your audience, right? Like if I move to a vegan colony and I open up a steakhouse, that means I have no understanding of the people that are going to be potential patrons, right? Like I need to understand what those folks care about and what they want in order to put a restaurant that's going to be successful in that type of environment. And so the thing that I tell folks is the number one way to shortcut to that answer is figure out what that person's KPIs are. What are their key performance indicators? How are they judged in their job? What is their boss coming down on them about? An easy one is obviously a salesperson, right? A salesperson is judged by what's their close rate, how much sales are you bringing in? And then there's other things behind that. But like, if you can understand what those KPIs are, you can rely on your own, brilliant legal compliance mind to say, okay, well, these are the headwinds that I might be facing, or these are the difficulties that my policy that I'm trying to impose on this person might be rubbing up against. And at the end of the day, they're going to prioritize their own KPIs over compliance, unless whatever. I mean, we can get into the psychology of it, but like that's 80% of the time, I think, going to be the way to shortcut to understanding your client, which in this case is, or your internal customer, which in this case is the salesperson. How have you seen? Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, so I mean, how have you seen folks that report to you struggle with this kind of concept of putting the client, right, the person internally that you're serving, how have you seen them struggle with putting those people before the policy, and to use your example?
No, but I think that honestly, that comes from experience and being comfortable with yourself and your role and your position, because ultimately you are going to be the risk filter, right? Because the easiest way for me to be secure is to say, hey, that's the policy. Read the policy and follow the policy. Everything from that to the KPI discussion you just talked about, right? That's a risk filter. How comfortable am I in the company culture with the people that I work with and so on? But honestly, for me, it's I think what we sometimes need to ask ourselves is exactly that why you talked about. So why are we here? What is the value we are bringing? How can we help everyone? And that's not risk. The risk is the safe piece to talk about. But honestly, it's more about when the salesperson have these 80% of the KPIs that might not be compliance KPIs, he still needs to take some decisions in those KPIs.
Right.
If we can have the person reflect on these decisions, whether it's the right decision, it's a gray zone decision, should you talk to someone before you take that decision? If we can get the person to do that, then I think we have the most integrated compliance program you can probably imagine yourself.
Yeah, I mean, at some level, right? On one end of the spectrum, a fully, like a fully working compliance program has articulated every single possibility and has a pronouncement for it and has a policy for it and has downloaded that directly into the minds of all the human beings out there. That's on one side of it. That's a lot of pages, so to speak, a lot of words. The other side of it which is maybe more effective, which obviously leaves room for a lot of gray, is to just do the right thing, right? And what you're talking about is having somebody digest some principle or some kind of basic viewpoint on what that right thing is, to the point where they integrate it. And that's what we're talking about in terms of integrated risk management. They're integrating that into their thought process in pursuit of their KPIs. They're integrating that into how they look at the trade-offs that they're facing on a day-to-day basis, so that on average, or for the most part, the confluence of behaviors are in compliance within the organization.
And you can say it's because you can say that the policy is the risk, right? And the policy, typically is built up to say you cannot do this and you cannot do this. The policy is probably pretty much addressing the 10% of the people who will do it anyway, right? Because that is to tell them they cannot do it. But the rest of the workforce typically, might do it because they're naive or didn't think about the circumstances and whatever.
Good point.
And that's why you want to help them, right? You want to help them in that situation to become better at their job, whether they are business development or sales or whatever.
Yeah, that is it. You bring up an interesting point. A lot of policies have this negative slant, and I'm starting to see more policies have a kind of a positive slant as well, to say, as opposed to saying don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, to also say you should do it this way. Talk to me a little bit about that. Are you seeing that kind of a thing, and how can folks start to implement that? Because like what I'm interested in, I like the big ideas and those are interesting, but like, how do we bring these things down to earth and actually start to put them into practice?
No, but I think it's there are many things you can do. Actually, I think that I think one thing we need to be mindful of, we need to be very strong at communication. Mm-hmm. We need to think about the things we initiate as literally like a storyline. There needs to be a storyline among, in whatever we do. We need to be able to tell that story. And connect that storyline to the compliance program. That means people start to get it. So that's why, mm-hmm. And then you need to literally go the extra mile. To give an example, in my previous position, we had a ambulance healthcare company, 911 services and so on. And imagine here, the guy in the ambulance, he is sitting in the station waiting for that call any minute for a 12-hour shift. Will he ever be able to take, read the code of conduct or take a 45-minute e-learning? No, unless he's off duty, right?
Right.
So in that case, we in order to integrate this and make it alive, we created a code of conduct app solution. And then we, instead of talking about what you cannot do, not do, we only talked about the positive in a half a page with good practical examples. And then actually they ended up sitting in their station there when they had this 5 minutes between calls and looked at their mobile phones, scrolling through the code of conduct and the things, because that was easy to understand. It didn't take a lot of time. They didn't have to go to a fancy internet to read it. You can literally do it whenever you felt like it.
Right.
And it was in a language where people understood it. And
if they're swiping through their phone, it's in bite-sized pieces. I mean, it's so brilliant. It's such a, isn't it funny? All the best innovations in retrospect are so simple. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like there were bicycles, people were crashing into each other, and then they're like, what if we put a little bell there? Very simple innovation, right? Prevented a lot of bike accidents. What a simple innovation to boil down this policy of what you want done into positive things that people can swipe through on their phone in easy to digest language that they'll actually engage with. Because you can send around a 40-page PDF. Guess what? People are just going to go to the end of it, just like they do on the Apple update. They're going to go to the end of it and say, I agree. And then they're going to move on without ever reading any of it.
Yes. But I fully agree, and I think that in my current position, we have created a strategy called, and actually that was subject to coming there and doing a review of the setup and so on, and then we created a strategy called Compliance Simplified, and the reason why we call it Compliance Simplified is to make a statement that we should always, in everything that we do, we know the risks, we know the regulations, everyone in the company knows that we are the experts in that field. So no one will question on that. But
Right.
if you come out with products that are overly complicated, no one will understand it. So we have created literally a mantra of things we will say to each other when we do projects, when we do campaigns, when we do communication. We ask ourselves a few things before that. Is it the most simple solution you could choose? If it's a project of technology and so of some sort, we say to ourselves, is this as automated as it could be? Have we used enough smart technology? And then we finally ask ourselves, is this effective and is it actually, and then that's quite interesting as well. Then at the end, we ask ourselves, is it actually cost efficient? Imagine that a compliance function asking, a question to yourself, am I cost efficient? And that's
Right.
because with the technology development that is on here, we cannot just continue to buy standard license software for a premium. We need to be smart around technology. We need to think like the IT function. We need to think about it like commercial departments now, because then we get room to make all the interesting, funny stuff, right? That's what it's.
Yeah, and actually, if you're asking these questions, you get a lot of credibility when you're going to finance to get the money. Like if you're asking the questions that finance is going to ask before you go to finance, your credibility with finance is going to go up. You're gonna be like, okay, cool, these guys get it. I don't have to double check everything all the time. You understand what I'm saying? Like we are not an appendage to the body. Well, I guess we are, but I'm saying we're not we're part of this thing. Like we need to be business people. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we need to be part of it, and we need to use those business people functions. So I love that Compliance Simplified. I love that stream of questions. It's something that I think the best organizations are always automatically asking. And I'm wondering if you came up with this because of your business background, because you spent so much time on the business side. And I wonder if the folks that struggle, like a lot of the folks I talk to, they're like, oh man, I don't have the budget I need, or man, no one cares about ethics and compliance. And I'm just thinking, like, everybody wants to work in an ethical workplace. Everybody does. They just do. Everybody wants to work in a place where they can speak up. Nobody wants to get in trouble and lose their job for something stupid. Like people aren't, going to bed at night, thinking about how they can rip people off. I'm just saying most people aren't like sociopaths. You understand what I'm saying? So it's right there for us. It's right there for us to take. Why do people struggle so much with making that bridge between effectiveness and policy, or, the business side and the compliance side? Do you think it's a fear thing? Do you think it's a lack of confidence thing, or what?
I think it's maybe it's actually partly that, you can say, but it's also a little bit about, maybe having, it's a mix of things. I think it's having, a solid business background experience from the business side. And then I think it's also about being a bit relaxed and think like, okay, I'm not, in an ivory tower here. I'm not sacred in any way. I'm a function that needs to justify my value as any other function. And, then in the past, we talked about, but we are managing risks. We own the policy. And, if something goes wrong, we are the ones that investigate and find that solution. But that's such a rare instance, right? That it happens like maybe, big cases for large companies happens maybe, huge cases maybe once every 10 years. In the meantime, you actually do all the important work of mitigating and making sure nothing happens. And here, it's more important that you are agile, that you are dynamic. And I think if you speak the same language as a salesperson or business development person or procurement person, in the way you present your offerings, it just sticks, right? For example, the way we present like certain things around our self-assessment risks, due diligence self-assessments and compliance risk self-assessments is through dashboards with key numbers, statistics, measurables. And we have also said, like, when we take decisions on, should we find a new system to screen third parties, or do we use, then you can say, in many places you think about it like, okay, yeah, we should, it's a bad system, or yes, because it doesn't work. What we are saying is that that's not good enough. We need to have objective, measurable data to justify anything that we do. And everything we deliver, we also deliver based on data. So for example,
instead of anecdote.
It is kind of right. So for example, what we did just in late last year, we needed a conflict of interest module. We didn't have we had a policy, not really a policy. We were about to roll out a policy, and then we needed somewhere for people to register a conflict of interest. And then we said, okay, what do we do? Well, we have one option: go to market, buy a licensed piece of software somewhere. All the big providers, they have a CUI tool that you can buy. It's super expensive. Do the business feel that a tool for reporting conflict of interest is exciting? No, they don't. Is it a good help for them? Yes, of course it's a help, because now we know all their connections and relationships, so that's good. But they don't really get it, right? So to come to them and say, hey, let's spend a few millions on a CUI tool, it's a little bit of a hard bargain, I would say. So what we did instead, we said, hey, listen, we need to think differently here. So we said, can we develop a tool on our own using standard licensed software, building blocks in 10 weeks, and then roll that out to the whole global organization? So we started up that. We got a small robotics company that is in France and Germany today to help us out. And in 10 weeks, we delivered and developed from scratch a CUI tool.
Perfect.
That we're right now piloting in one of our business areas in Mexico.
Amazing.
And literally it cost nothing, because it was based on our current IT infrastructure providers and just a bit of development work.
See?
And actually that's much better, and then we show the business that, hey, listen, we don't go out just and buy off the shelf stuff because we need it and it's very expensive and we are expensive. We show them that we actually think technology, we think about cost, we think about how fast we are. So we also focus on literally what is the time to market. A little bit like a you can say a sales organization launching new products, right? We are saying to ourselves, if we want to replace some software with some other software, it cannot be 1.5 years before we deliver. So how is our time to market? So we kind of think constantly, what is the value proposition of our end users? What is the cost implication? What are the potential cost savings? And how does it tie into our technology agenda, literally?
Yeah, and again, it just builds so much credibility in the organization. It helps you solve the problem quicker. And I mean, you're a guy who I think you're comfortable questioning the status quo. You're comfortable saying, is there a better way to get here? Have you always been that way?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It's I don't know what it is. Maybe there's something wrong with me, but it's just that I like to, I really, it's a sense of, actually it's a mix of wanting to challenge and then believing we can probably do it smarter, Right. And then actually, for example, when we had the CUI piece there, or when we had the app development in my former company, when we started that project up, we just said we want to have this at the end of the project, but there was nothing in the market. We didn't even know how it looked like. Right. I just had we need to have a one-stop shop for the paramedics to use, and it needs to have these features here. How do we get there? Right. And then we started that work there, and that's kind of how I've always thought, in anything that I do, how can we do that? And then I like to, challenge. If people come and say to me, this is not good enough, I feel this is bad. Okay, show me it's bad. Show me the data that shows that it's bad. Right. If you cannot show me the data, it's your subjective feeling. That's not good enough for me. That I cannot take a decision based on a feeling or what you feel like or want to do. I want to take a decision based on what is objectively the right decision, backed up by data. Do you would your friends and your family say that you're a debater? You like to debate things? Yes, sometimes I do. Yeah. But, I really love to debate, and but but I also just like, you know, the inspiration of other people, right? You know, I learn constantly. You know, for example, the IT projects we're doing now on this IT roadmap we are developing, you know, I'm getting a lot of inspiration. I'm being challenged here because, you know, I'm suddenly the old dinosaur now, right? Because, you know, oh, come on, you know, you're talking, you know, low code developments, and I feel like I'm the old guy, you know, so I'm also being constantly challenged, but I also accept that I don't know everything, right?
Right.
And my toolbox is pretty stable, but you know, why shouldn't it change my toolbox? Why shouldn't I maybe take parts of it out and put some new stuff in? Why, you know, why shouldn't I also develop, right? So it's so that's probably why I like to challenge things, because, you know, can we do something? You know, if I don't know what's in front of me, then I like it even more. If I don't know the path in front of me, it's even more exciting.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Like, I don't know how this is going to turn out. You know what Socrates said? Socrates said, I am the smartest man in Greece. I'm the smartest man in all of Greece. No, I'm sorry. I'm the wisest man in all of Greece because I know what I don't know. And I know that I know nothing. So if you know that you know nothing, then you're open to learn, and you're open to have new space in your toolbox to add new tools and stuff like that. I love that kind of a vibe, and I love that kind of inventor, debater approach to life. Because, you know, it's somebody who wants to figure out how things work, somebody who's willing to sort of question the status quo and see how we can make something better, because it can always be better, right? Like, if we're never going to achieve perfection, then we can always get closer to perfection. We can get closer and closer to it, and we can, you know, become more and more effective. I know that you, so I read this article that you wrote on the FCPA blog last summer, and I really loved it. And it's a question that I'd love to spend a few minutes kind of chewing on together. And it's a thing that I hear all the time, that, you know, hey, we're not getting a lot of reports, so I think we're in pretty good shape. And so your article, this is on the FCPA blog, it's called, Can You Measure a Speak Up Culture by the Number of Complaints? Walk us through kind of the thesis of that discussion. And let's just kind of dive into that. I'm sure you've heard that from maybe leadership in the past. How have you approached that, and how, you know, what can our listeners learn from your mentality around this question that a lot of us face?
No, but I think that piece there came out of you know, a long and very heavy draining exercise in a cleanup exercise in a company where we had, you know, quite a lot of challenges around, you know, all sorts of things, culture, you imagine it, right? So there was a lot.
Yeah.
And when I joined the company, it was literally like, you know, some cases go to the system, some cases we talk about over here in the corner, right? That's the more important cases. And the harassment cases are not really, no, that's not the case, right? So, and I just saw how that kind of deteriorated the whole culture and belief in the company if you really had a problem in the first place. And through that exercise, what I always was kind of met with from management was, in the beginning at least, I think they really changed. But in the beginning it was like, yeah, but how many cases do we have? You know, or now we have too many cases. And I was literally saying to them, but I think we need to stop this number game. I know, of course, this is fine in many instances when it's like financial performance or sales numbers, but we are talking about human beings here. You know, I think we need to make sure that, you know, whatever is coming in is what we feel is a comfortable level as per our company. And, you know, so that people feel that we see the numbers driving a certain culture of comfort that you can speak up. And I think it's down to that piece in order for the company, I think, to have, you know, at least develop a more strong culture, you can say. So it's more culture tool than it's like a number game. That's
100%. 100%. I mean, the thing I tell people is, how many cases do you think are in your company? How many people are, like, how many instances of wrongdoing that are reportable are happening in the company? Do you think it's 3%? Because then you have to take that number and multiply it by however many people have seen the wrongdoing, right? Like, you can get 2 reports of the same instance, right? Like, if there's a fire, the 911 or, you know, whatever emergency services gets maybe a dozen calls about that particular issue. So the numbers are way bigger. The potential numbers are way bigger, to your point, than what management thinks, particularly because people aren't reporting, because some don't find their way into the case, into the management system or whatever. But I think, more importantly than that, I think people are finally starting to get the connection between culture and bottom line. And, if if your culture is rotten out, you're definitely not getting the most from your people. So those are that's an easy thing for a CEO or for the C-suite or the executives to understand. And I think the biggest thing that folks can do to improve their culture faster is give people in the organization a voice and make them feel like their voice matters. That's such a big piece of the puzzle. Why do people struggle with that so much? Do you think it's a generational shift that we're in the midst of? Do you think it's hard for management to draw the line between? I mean, it's not hard for you to draw it. Is it hard for management to draw the line between people feeling good or people having a strong culture that they believe in and that translating into more stock options or bigger stock price or what? I mean, what is it?
No, but I think there's definitely some shift happening in the generations here. Of course there are, because just 5, 8. I mean, we don't have to go back long.
Yeah.
Where you had that feeling, literally any company, and hardly any company had a whistleblower system, and hardly any company had an independent whistleblower system.
Right.
So there is a shift happening in these years with more focus from society, from people on the street. They are judging the company differently now. There's a higher expectation also from the Gen Zs and the millennials that we want to be here because we feel part of this company. We are part of this vision. We are part of this journey. And if you then have systems like this where people are mistreated, they are then treated bad or not heard, it just immediately cascades to the entire organization. It's like anything else, right? One bad review, can be 1,000 bad reviews, right? But you don't really talk about the good things around it, right?
Right.
So in for example, in the exercise before here, I think what we started talking about was not the number, but literally like what happened,
right.
Of good things, what misunderstandings, and good things, and also unfortunate things. And we started talking about of how many cases you get in, how many really actually is come out with an outcome of some kind of consequence or not. But we talked more about the consequence, where it's like you can say, corrective measures or guidance and so on, because that is what makes people more comfortable to say, the guy to the right, he got fired. That creates a completely different culture. So when you talk about what is substantiated or non-substantiated, we started looking at, the softer parts, because that is what drives the comfort in the company. The part about being fired, that will always happen. That's again addressing the 5% and not the 95%. So
right.
You want to guide your workforce, and that and they need to feel comfortable, right? That it's that if there's a challenge, let's talk about it. We will fix it. We are here for you as an employer.
It's the biggest opportunity that businesses have over probably the next 5 to 10 years. What you just said is the biggest opportunity for guys to really wrap their mind around and really put into action, so that the people inside our knowledge work economy, our businesses that are in the knowledge work economy where people are using their brains, can feel like they're part of something. Because as you grow, there's tons of change. That change makes people question their footing in the organization, or where they stand, or is the purpose of the organization missing, and all that kind of stuff. So I love it. I think you're spot on. This has been a really fun time together. Before we go, I like to ask 2 questions. One is, if you can go back in time and find a young Martin just coming out of law school, okay, what advice would you give him? What advice do you wish you had 15 years ago or something?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I sometimes have been a mentor for a few young students in the past, so I've got similar questions in the past. But I think that for me, it's that you just need to be curious and don't focus specifically on your own area. Be open, be curious about all the functions around you. Show interest, and the interest will come the other way as well. And that just gives you just a more solid profile. Be interested in all the different aspects of a company, not only the compliance piece. To know how they do sales, or what's the triggers in procurement, or how finance work on the annual report. all these pieces here gives you credibility. And
Right.
that is what is important when you go up the ladder. I had a CFO in Maersk in my first, like, when you call real job, right? And he always told me, like, it's you really need to think like it's a customer, and you need to know a little bit about your customer. Otherwise, you will not make that sale. So show interest and spend a bit of time on that as well. Then that will give you more back to yourself.
Yeah, it's always time well spent. It always is time well spent trying to understand the person that you're trying to serve. Let me tell you that, and then my last question is, what's top of mind? What do you think is the biggest challenge that ethics and compliance folks are facing right now that if we can fix it, it will make our profession and make our businesses look totally different 10 years from now?
Well, I think we need to. It's kind of what I said in the beginning. I think what I quite often see we don't do is that we don't make that strategy. We don't storytell our role and our function, and that means the why. In many companies, anyone in the company would not know, the value and the why of the compliance function. It's simply by making a sweet, short strategy and talk about a direction for the next 4 or 5 years, like any business would do, will make life easier for you. And it will be easier to also ask for money for investments, because they say, oh yeah, but you had that strategy of getting there in 5 years. I see that. Okay, then I think we should support you in this initiative or this project. But if you are just ad hoc problem solving, 1 year after the other, and I'm sorry, then I think it's very difficult to change anything.
Yeah, it is, because then you're just in reactionary mode. You're not.
Yes.
There's no direction. There, it's like you're not putting the, you're not putting the sails out and guiding the ship in the way that you want it to go. You're just letting the waves push you to where they want you to go.
And I think honestly, I know that what's most important for me is that whatever I do is, on one hand, and that's where the compliance role becomes tricky. I need to safeguard the audit committee, the board, the management, and the shareholders. That's the risk piece, right? On the other hand, if I can make it so smooth that everyone see the why, then I've been successful, as I said.
Right. I love it.
I need to be that filter, not only the filter. I should not talk the talk of the audit committee. Well, I meet the audit committee. I should, but when I meet anyone else, I need to be able to talk the talk of the organization.
Right. I love it. Martin, this has been a great episode. It surpassed my expectations, and I have high expectations,
I know.
So everyone, find Martin on LinkedIn. We'll put your links in the show notes, and check him out in the FCPA blog. I'm looking forward to hearing to seeing some new articles from you. And until next time.
Thanks. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.